Hello, good evening, and welcome to Deliberate. I'm Cory. Kim's over there. Say hi.
What did the shoes say to the pants?
Oh, God. What?
What's up, britches?
That's really, really bad.
I heard that on the plane the other day, we had a jokester who was a steward. We had a jokester steward. And every couple minutes he'd come on and just crack a new joke. So that was my favorite out of all of them.
And that was the one that you...
What's up, britches?
Fantastic.
What's up, Cory?
So you were traveling?
I traveled. Yeah, we went to Atlanta on a client visit.
That sounds fun.
Oh, it was awesome. It was my first client visit with this company. And it was really cool to talk to them and understand exactly what they're looking for and to see if we were, on par with what we were providing versus what they needed. And we came out with having some really interesting topics of discussion, some new feature requests, some other things we can dive into and kind of bounce off of other clients.
Were you demoing stuff to them, or were you watching them use the new thing?
No, I demoed. So we did we first had some time to talk about what they do today, just an overarching discussion. And then from there, I demoed what we've built, talked around all that, and then spent the other half of the day talking about what we're building in the future.
That's cool.
It was a great visit.
Yesterday I did something similar to that. We picked our new project for this upcoming semester for the students that I work with. And we sat down with the users that we're going to be building this thing for to understand their current process. So we didn't talk about the solutions that were going to be built. We didn't talk about anything other than let's talk about what you're doing now.
It was so funny because that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And instead it's like, what we'd love to have. And then all of a sudden they start talking about solutions and things that they want to implement. And I'm like, no, let's just talk about what you're doing now. Yeah. And it's so hard to get them away from that.
And it is. And I did a little bit of studying because I've done some of that before. I did a little bit of studying before we had that. And I think it'd be a good topic for us to talk about on the show is about, UX and personas and how to go through a UX interview type situation with your users. And everything that I've read and understood and the things that I made sure that I didn't ask were things like, what do you want?
Right.
Yeah. Don't ask that.
I was trying to do a lot of those open-ended questions, so I wasn't getting lots of yes and noses.
Right.
Noses? Don't want those noses.
No.
So yeah, it was a great experience. I'm glad we went out there.
Yeah.
And we were only out there for a day and a half, but I did get a chance to visit the aquarium in Atlanta.
Sweet.
I gotta tell you, it's a gorgeous aquarium.
Very nice.
I know. So we had a team building at the aquarium.
Good.
There you go. Fun for the team. We just talked about that in the last episode.
That's right.
Bring your teams to the aquarium in Atlanta and take them out for breakfast.
If you're in Atlanta.
If you're in Atlanta.
If you're in Montana.
Go out to Atlanta. Bring your teams
maybe
to
you
Atlanta.
don't go to Atlanta. Maybe you find something else.
How was your podcast?
Geek Nerd Festival?
Yes.
It was fantastic.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, there was lots of shows. There were lots of people that I'm fans of their shows and got to meet them and talk to them. There was lots of people.
Did you have your autograph book?
No, I feel weird doing that.
That's good because I was just going to make fun of you.
Yeah, okay, good. I felt weird doing that, but I talked to them. And I didn't, there was a lot of people getting selfies with them, but I just wanted to talk to them. I just wanted to say, hey, I'm a fan of yours. I like what you do. And that was fun for me. And the funny thing was there was lots of, the big podcasts that were up on the stage that were doing their recordings. And then there was at least 6 other shows that were just recording in a corner, on a lobby, there was a Mexican restaurant and there was a terrace over there and somebody recorded a show there. And I just sat in on these things just to hear them, how they were doing and all these things. There was a good thing on community. About how to build communities and help communities go around your show, around your podcast. So those were interesting things. I also finished 3 books.
Wow!
As I was there,
find the time
because I was on vacation. And I was on a plane for 6 hours. So read away. And one of the books that I've had on my list for a long time that I finally got through and loved it is Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. So it's a book that has been talked about. I've heard it as the book that talks about how you think. And it's so much more than that. It's about how you know things that happen in the blink of an eye in 2 seconds, right? Not that blinks of an eye takes 2 seconds. It's much shorter than that. But when you see something for the first time and you have that first recognition, that first impact, that first idea of what something is, how you go through that. So basically it's your judgment. And it's a fascinating book. It's got a lot of good examples in the book about how people who are experts in their field know things without knowing them. Right? So there's an example of a statue that was supposed to be some Greek old statue. And the instant somebody looked at it, he said, no, I don't know why. I can't tell you why, but no. And, go through the story. Turns out he was right. There's lots of examples of that, where people who are experts in their field know how to look at something or know how to judge something from an instant and say something's not right. Something's right or it's not right. And then to be able to go through the process of tracing that out. So very good. One of the quotes that just smacked me in the head as I was reading it, and it was toward the very end of the book. It says, the key to good decision making is not knowledge, it's understanding. We are swimming in the former. So we have lots of data. We have tons of information, but we can't make sense of it. So we are desperately lacking in the latter. So that understanding, and I think that fits great with what we're trying to do as product owners, is don't tell me what you want and don't give me all the information you have, but tell me why you need something. Show me what you're trying to do with that so I can figure out how to help you. So I can understand. There we go. I've got the data from sources. I've got the information that I need, but help me put it together so that I can build you something that's going to be meaningful for you. I love that.
I like that too.
There's lots of things where he had examples of people that had too much data and he stripped it back. So there was a good case of Cook County where they were talking about the ER and the cardiac unit. And there were so many things they were looking at to determine if somebody was having a heart attack or not. And they cut it back to 3 criteria. And that solved most of their problems. So they actually got less information and made better decisions. I like that too. So yeah. So it's a very good book. I recommend it. It may be one of these things I have to read every year because I have a few books like that I read once a year or once every other year just because they're just fantastic books. So that was very good.
Very good. I read something while you were gone.
Yeah.
I did. I read this brief article that was on the mindtheproduct.com. Mm-hmm. And it was 4 design skills every product manager should have.
Ooh.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. It was pretty high level, but basically there were 4 different things that product managers should be aware of, including having the ability to perform advanced user research so that they can understand their customers.
Yep.
Understanding basic design skills so they are able to outline the journey to explain further, to the team what really needs to be done. They also talked about having taste, which I found interesting. Taste. So, recognizing good design versus bad design.
Yes.
And I liked the point that they mentioned, whoever wrote it, I don't have his name in front of me. Sorry. The author wrote about, analyzing design and figuring out what you like and what you don't like. Mm-hmm. And eventually you kind of create your own, type of flair. Style, right? Yeah. And then the last one was just knowing your basic concepts of visual design so that you're able to converse intelligently with other people and kind of back up your requests. So when you say things like, this button over here looks too small, instead of saying that, you can say there's a lot of white space and, I don't know, whatever else you'd say.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was an interesting article. It was a quick read. I got a little something out of it.
Yeah, I like those things too because we're both visual people and we both like apps that have – your app has some form of design, whether you do it intentionally or you have a team do it or not. And it's just how can you make sure you have a good design and some skills to do that. So. And
I have to say I really do enjoy working with designers. Yeah. Because they look at things completely different from how I look at things. And it's nice. It's always like an aha moment when they point something out. I'm like, I wish I would have seen that.
Yeah. I definitely think it's something that we need to explore further on the show and do more talking about designers. I have a couple of contacts that we can use to get, especially on personas. I want to talk to somebody about personas because I think that's cool.
We should get some. I keep saying this. We need to have some guests.
Well, I'm in the process of booking a guest now.
Okay.
for September.
Is it a guest that everybody knows? Or do you
Kinda.
want to keep it a secret?
I want to keep it a secret.
Oh,
Yes.
secret guest.
Surprise guest.
Wouldn't that be so much fun? We won't even say who it is.
Mystery guest.
Mystery
Please
guest.
reveal yourself.
What are we talking about today?
We're going to talk about story negotiation in the context of your INVEST acronym.
Invest.
So investing has lots of pieces. The piece that I want to talk about more than anything today is the negotiation piece, because that's a lot of what we're doing. Is we're going to talk and do some horse trading on our stories, right?
We're trading horses.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you know?
I don't even have a horse.
Okay. Well, then you don't get anything.
I don't get to play.
But I think one of the big things is, while we're negotiating our story and while we're going through this, is to keep the goal of our story, whatever we're talking about, keep that goal of that story in mind as we're doing this, because that's ultimately what we're going to deliver. That's ultimately what the user is going to actually use. So whatever we're negotiating on, we keep that in, right there in front.
So can you set up the context? But you say negotiation. Are you referring to negotiating with our clients, our teams, ourselves?
Yes, all three of those.
Okay.
It's like you read ahead.
I didn't. I was looking. Did you see me? I was looking up at the ceiling. Whenever I think, I look at the ceiling.
Yeah. So this is something, when we're writing our stories, we're doing this constantly. Okay. We're doing this with our business and our customers. So they're talking about things they want or things that they need. We're trying to get more information out of them or trying to tailor a message or a story for them. The team's doing it, right? So we're splitting and combining stories with the team. We have technical stories. We have all these types of things. And as we show these teams these stories, 3 times, like we try to do, then every time they see that story, there's a little bit something different, because we've talked about it, we've discussed it, and we have to negotiate. We have to be open to saying, I really want this, and I'm willing to trade these other things if I have to.
Right.
So, and then when we're writing our stories ourselves and we're reviewing them ourselves, or we're reviewing them with other product owners, we have to be able and conscious of, okay, here's where I'm going to split the story. Is it okay to split it here? Is it better to split it there? Maybe I can combine these two. I don't know yet, but I'm going to try a couple different ways. So you're actually going through this process with yourself and trying to figure out how you can split these on different dimensions. So is it worth going over something on a payment avenue, or is it worth something going on a reporting avenue? How can I split those pieces up?
So I know you want to focus on negotiation, which is the N in invest.
Correct.
But I think we should start with talking about the I.
Okay.
Because that comes before the N.
All right.
All right. So in the acronym INVEST, I stands for?
Independent.
That's right.
Thank you.
See how I was looking at you waiting for an answer?
No.
If there were more people in the room, I would have looked around the room to see if anybody knew. So independence. We want stories to not be dependent upon other stories. So they should be able to be worked on and not be associated with other things. There shouldn't be any sort of dependencies between the stories.
Yeah, you're always going to have some level of dependency. You can't get away from that. But we want to make them as independent as possible so that we can put these things in any order. We can put them in any priority if we wanted to do that.
And you can link them.
Of course.
So, we do a lot of linking in Jira. So if we have stories that are relying on each other or that are related to one another, we'll link the two together.
Right.
And it's just a visual, you can see it like, okay, I know that this precedes that one, for example.
Yeah. And one of the things that allows us to do, if they're separate pieces, is we can move them around. And so if the market changes, if the customer changes, if something changes, then we can slide them to accommodate that.
Right. Right.
So
you don't need to do the whole set. For example, if you're doing a bunch of stories, maybe you're adding comments, right? That's one of your stories, and editing comments and then deleting comments. Let's say you have 3 different stories. You can work on just adding, and you can push back editing and deleting for another time. There's not like a dependency, like one has to be done before the other one could. Well, I guess in that case, you kind of have to be adding them first. Bad example, but you get what I mean.
Yeah.
Okay.
So negotiating.
Your favorite part?
My favorite part, and that's what I want to, because that's what we're, like I said, we're constantly doing that. We're doing it with everybody, because we have to figure out how to get them something that can work for them. So we have to negotiate on just about every aspect of things we're doing. So we want to describe what's really needed, why they really want to do it, right? So again, we're trying to drive the conversation with the story. So we want to say, here's what the user says that they need, or here's what the problem they have is. How can we talk about how best to solve that? So we learn by talking and write the story, change the story based on those conversations. So one of the things, a couple of things I like to negotiate on, what can we take out and still get done?
Right.
How can we make this simpler from what either a requirement is or what somebody said at a meeting or somebody else? How can we take that idea, that story? How can we make that thing smaller so we can deliver it faster, so we can get feedback sooner, and we can, just get more information?
I agree, because I think a lot of times everybody wants that Porsche version, and most of the time I just need the Kia. Just to start with,
sure.
I just need a Kia.
Yeah.
So let's strip out all the beautiful stuff and let's just go with the basic functionality of it, and then add on as time goes on.
And really, that's negotiating on scope too, because there's 100 things on your list, but we only need to do really 20 of them. So let's do those 20 first, and you may change your mind on the others.
It's so cute how people all add to scope creep. Like, I love my developers and I love everybody in the world, but when they're like, "Hey, it'd be really great if we do this. Can we put a story for that?" I'm like, "Nope, it's not part of my list."
Well, and that's where maybe it could be, depending on what it is.
Maybe later.
How does it fit? So let's talk. Let's figure it out. Let's negotiate on whether it makes sense to do that or not.
Right. I'll put it in my backlog as code for no.
No.
Just kidding.
Another thing I like to talk about when we're negotiating things is what can we do now versus what can we do later. So this is another, we talked about it during our Saying No show, is we want to negotiate things that we have to do now that will give us value now versus things that will give us value later, or not as much value. We can negotiate those things out. So we can say, this is something that's really useful now. This is something that'll be useful later. We'll do the later bit later, oddly enough. So negotiating both with teams and clients to get those things out there. I like that. And that's negotiating really on priority as we go, because things that are valuable now should be done now. They're higher priority. What are we also negotiating on? Not necessarily technology. So one of the things I like about the product owner role is we get to choose what to build and when to build it, but never how. So we don't talk about, you're going to use this technology. That's for the team to decide, right?
Yeah. They would never want me telling them what technology to use.
Of course not. Because I don't know half the stuff. I don't know.
Just
either.
Use the thing that makes it work.
Yeah. But I'm interested in the impact of technology, right? So if you're doing it in one technology, how long does it take?
Right.
How much maintenance is it? How much information do you need before you can get started? Versus another technology that has similar things. I've only done that once in my career as a product owner. I haven't picked a technology. I picked an implementation time frame. And both teams did a spike. Both teams came back and presented. Both teams showed what they had, and it was remarkably similar. It looked great, right? And it behaved the same. One was going to take about twice or three times as long as the other. And all of the things being equal, that was about the only downside, was the time it took. So if I get to pick, and I pick when, so I want it done if I can get it done in 2 weeks versus 6, then I'm going to pick that. Again, everything else being equal. But I didn't pick the technology. I didn't pick what was implemented. I picked how long it took to implement it. So it's an interesting line, but it's a good negotiation tactic to go, okay, how can I get this done in the least amount of time with the highest quality and still be able to maintain it after I get it in?
I remember that. I was actually working with you at the time. Okay. When we had the teams do that. Yeah. And it was actually very interesting.
It was fun.
It was fun. They enjoyed it.
And it kind of took, and it was a contentious thing. At the first, because both teams wanted to do it their own way.
Yeah.
And it was one of these things where, you know what, we had some time to do that, and it was important enough to make sure we explored both options. So we talked to both teams and got them to both come up with their own suggestions and everything, and they did, and they presented it to each other too. And that was the more interesting for me, is I want both teams to see the other side, right? Because otherwise they probably wouldn't have done it. They'd probably just done their side and said, yep, ours works.
Yep.
And now they got to saw that the other side worked just as well. And that was interesting. It was fun.
Very cool.
Let's see. So we want to be open. We want these things to go back and forth. So we want the conversations to go back and forth. Again, we're negotiating. So if I'm in a story review meeting with a team and they say, well, to do that, we'll need to do this. I say, okay, well, what if we what if we slice that story thinner and leave that part that you don't know how to do out? And let's say if there's 10 options on the screen, let's say we do 5, or let's say we concentrate on these 3 first and we save the other ones for another story. Can you do it then? Or what's the impact then?
Yeah. So there are different times on when negotiation is necessary, right? So when a story won't fit in the remainder of an iteration, I think that's when it's important to negotiate that story, kind of like what you were just talking about.
Yeah. I think that's something too, where it could be something where you have to, or you need to get that story in an iteration versus you've got time for another story in an iteration. And that's the highest priority thing on your backlog. And you don't want to take so let's say you have 3 points available. So you don't want to go find a 3-point story and pull it up. You could do that. That's one option. But if this is an 8, okay, how can we make it a 3 so we can get it in? That type of negotiation to say, I really want to get this in because it's the most important thing. I really don't want to go down the list. How can we do that? And you may not be able to do it, but you can try and you can talk about the different things in that story.
Right. And another thing is when something needs to be done immediately. Like right now, you've got to get this piece of work in. Okay, well, let's figure out what we're actually going to take out, what's not going to make it. And that's part of the negotiation as well.
Or what part of that story has to be done now, and again, versus what can be done later. So the thing that's being screamed about, whether it's a technology thing or a customer thing or if it's a PO thing, what do I absolutely have to have in this iteration to get in versus what can I leave out?
Exactly, leaving out some of those bells and whistles, some of those fun little Porsche features. Another time to negotiate is when there's a larger technical issue. Yeah,
that's always tricky because if they tell you that, there's a big upgrade coming and you have to get this done, or you're not compliant with security or some other things, then you have to figure out, okay, what kind of stories can I put in there? What do I need to tell the business? Because, hey, you know what? We've got this big upgrade we have to do. And
those things they kind of come out of nowhere.
Sometimes they do. Yeah.
It depends what do you mean Oracle needs to be upgraded? When did this happen?
Yeah, what do you mean that version's going off support?
Right. Why didn't I know about
this?
Why
didn't we know about that? Yeah. But now that we do know about it, what can we do about it? And what we can do about it is figure out when we can do it first and then what impact that's going to have.
Right. I was going to say, what does it really affect? And can it wait or does it need to happen immediately? Is it a kind of a drop all and work on it? Or maybe you can get another team to work on it. Whatever it is, there's that negotiation. And then another time to negotiate is when a final decision cannot be made.
Yeah. So sometimes if you need approvals or you need input and you can't get that for some reason, you have to talk to them about, okay, I know you can't decide, or I know you're not willing to decide, or maybe you don't say, I know you're not willing to decide, even though they're not willing to decide. There's ways you can go about, okay, what about if we did this? How about we do this thing? And then when you decide, ultimately, then we'll change it. So again, I expect these things to change every iteration. Whatever story we're working on, I expect them to change. And that's really the beauty of a lot of the Agile processes is it deals with change very fluidly, right? It's just another thing. So whatever you want, we'll figure out how to do it and then we'll change it if you don't like it. So there's no final decision. I love that phrase.
Right.
What is your final decision? Well, it's final for now, but it may change once they get more information. So we guide them by giving them a suggestion to say, here's an idea that we can try. And then you see it, you decide if you like it, and then if you don't, we'll change it.
This is my current decision.
This is what I'm thinking right now.
Right now.
What do you think? And then again, go back and forth, negotiate on, do you think that's a good idea? Would you rather wait? And if you'd rather wait, fine. We won't do anything until you make a decision. That may not be the best thing, depending on your market, depending on your company and everything else, but it's an option.
I think with the negotiations is a general comment. It's it's important to be transparent and to have those conversations with the team and with your stakeholders and with whomever. And that way everybody's on the same page and you're not hiding behind anything. And I just think it's important to have the conversations.
Yeah, I do too. So some things that should not be part of the negotiations on a story. Okay. I'm not going to negotiate splitting testing into a separate piece. So testing should be part of every story. And I don't want to make a story smaller by removing the testing to do it later. So I would never suggest, approve, or do that myself. So testing always stays with the story. Again, we just slice it into a smaller vertical piece. I don't want to negotiate out the components either. So I don't want to say, okay, we'll just do the eye for this story. We'll just do the back end for this story. Yeah, no.
No, I think we've talked about this enough on the show, the cake.
Yeah, we want the vertical slice of a story. If we have to make that slice smaller, fine, let's do that. But we've still maintained our multiple layers and our testing, and we've delivered something that's usable. Okay. And the reason that I say that is because you cut any of those pieces out, you don't have something that's usable anymore.
And you don't have anything that's demoable.
Right. So it's not valuable at that point.
It's not valuable. So if you have it split into 3 different stories, for example, the front end, the middle end, and the back end, and they only do the front and the back end, you still can't show it.
Yeah. And again, if you're not doing something that's valuable, why are you doing it?
Why are you doing it?
No. So don't do that.
I completely agree with you, Cory. So have we talked about negotiations enough?
I think so. I'm sure we'll come back to it, but yeah, I think for high level stuff, that's okay.
All right. So we've gone through our I, we've gone through our N, and now we're on V.
Valuable.
So when writing stories, we want to consider how valuable those stories are.
Yeah. Go through the process of understanding business value, impact, all the things that say we should do this because
this is why it's necessary.
This is why it's necessary.
Answering that question of why. Mm-hmm. And if it's not adding any sort of value, just don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it sounds kind of silly, but really, if no one cares about it, don't bother working on it.
Yeah. There was a survey I saw. Was it a survey? Or somebody talking about a survey that, looking at applications and the part of the applications that aren't being used.
Right.
So think about your application. Think about all the different things it can do. Think about Word, for example, right? Uh-huh. All the different options in Word. How many options never get used or get used less than 1% of the time?
Didn't they say 80%?
It was like 56 or 60%. It was something
really
high. Yeah, because if you're wasting 60% of your time, for what?
Right.
You've just wasted money.
Right. I think when you're considering value, think about what the customer can do once they receive it.
Yeah.
And is this something that they're going to need to be doing? And again, that's the conversation you need to have up front to make sure we're building the right thing. So value is really important. And it's not just value to the customer, but it's value to the team, to the developers,
the company,
right? To the company.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not all customer value. So
sure.
We're delivering to get something to our customers, but there's multiple different reasons why we're doing that. Either because we want to get more customers, or we want to get better technology, or we want to implement something that's easier to maintain, or we want to grow our revenues, or whatever reasons we're doing it. There is some value there. We just have to be able to extract it and present it.
Right. So instead of it just being we need to upgrade this system to blah, well, why? What's that going to do if we do upgrade that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So when we write the stories, we want to incorporate the benefit within the stories. We've talked about as a blah, I want to do blah because of blah. The same kind of thing. So we want to write the stories as if you're the user and you're saying, this is why I need this. Yeah.
Even if the ultimate value is to the developer or to your company, write the story in the terms of the user. Because the user is going to be using this product, but the value may be recognized by somebody else. So I think that's a very interesting thing. It's a hard thing to do because you want to write the story for whoever, was talking to you about it. So to think, if there's an Oracle upgrade or something like that, how is that going to benefit the customer?
Right.
This Oracle upgrade that they're not going to know anything about, probably. but it's going to benefit them in somehow. How is it going to benefit them?
So let me ask you this. When you write stories, do you somehow flag value within the story so you can compare them?
It's something that I've worked on a couple times. There's lots of different techniques for doing it. It's the same thing as story points, right? Or it's a similar thing to story points. So we assign this story point 8 with the team. We could work with our stakeholders, or we could work with other folks to determine business value for that story. And they could do the same type of numbering thing, or they could do something else. I've seen a couple, like coaches or people suggest that you give them, let's say, here's this release's stories, and there's 20 of them, whatever, epics. Get them in a room and say, okay, theoretically, you all have $100.
Yeah.
Put your money where you want, for you, the importance of these stories. You get that done, you collect that data, and then you start analyzing and you say, okay, this story is obviously the most important to the majority of people because everybody puts $60 on it or something like that. So you can go and play games or find ways to extract that value out to determine whether it's something you should be doing now or later. But there's lots of ways to do that.
I like that idea because you can use Monopoly money and really give them money to play with.
That's true.
It's actually a really cool idea.
Yeah.
I may steal that.
That's fine. Steal away. I give it freely.
Oh, thanks,
to
Cory.
you.
Can't say you never gave me anything.
That's right. Okay, so next is estimatable, which is not a word. Able to be estimated is a word. So if you can't estimate something, then you really don't know what its either value is or impact is, right? You don't know how long it's going to take. And you don't know when it'll be done. So how can you tell somebody?
You don't really know much.
You don't know much. There's a song in there.
You're just useless.
Just useless. So if it can't be sized, then let's rework the story. Let's negotiate. Let's figure out and try it again. So maybe they couldn't estimate it when it's something like, an epic, but they can estimate it when we break it down into smaller stories.
And sometimes if they can't estimate it, it's because they don't have enough information. So
Sure.
maybe a research spike is necessary. So wait till that research spike is done and then revisit the story.
Yep. Yeah. And we always want to do however the team wants to estimate something. Again, you do it in their style. You do it on points, if they do it in scales, if they want to do it in farm animals, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Sure.
And then we use epics, sometimes as placeholders for things that can't be estimated.
That's true.
Yeah.
I had to think about that for a moment.
What, placeholders?
Yeah, I don't typically use placeholders.
Okay.
I mean, do you?
Sometimes.
So, all right, estimatable, and then there's small.
Yes.
We've talked about small. We want to, what small means is that we're able to complete it within an iteration. Mm-hmm. So this allows us to pull in multiple stories within the sprint. Again, we talked about simple stories, get that kind of baseline, just the lowest, smallest piece feature functionality we can get. And it really depends. Small depends on the team. Some teams figure, a 3 is small.
Yeah.
Some teams figure 1 is small. So it really kind of depends on the team and what they're used to doing. And smaller stories, I found, by the way, I've had teams that love my little small bite-sized stories, is what they call them. They love them because they can test them quickly, they can develop them quickly, I can accept them quickly, we can all move on with our lives, and we don't get bogged down in these monster stories. Yeah,
and it's a balance to make sure that you don't get them so small that you're not breaking it down into, tests or tasks that should be part of a bigger story.
Right. A story is not a task.
Right. Or a test.
A story is a story, and there's tasks and tests within your stories.
So again, we're playing around with it. We're sliding up and down, determining whether the story is going to be something that can be implemented or not. So, but as small as we can get it and still get it done as a unit of value.
The largest story I ever want in a sprint is a 5. If I have a story that's an 8, I try to break it down.
Sure, for your velocity in your team.
Yes.
Right. I don't want, for that stuff, I don't want 1 story per sprint. I'd like to have about 5 stories per sprint, right? Whatever they are, whatever the velocity is, however size the stories are. Because I want to see progress. I want to see things get done, and I want to see different things getting done. So when we say small, that's kind of what I'm meaning is I want to see small enough to get multiple things done in a sprint.
I want to be able to demo at the end of my sprint. I want to be able to demo the things that we've done because they're done. They're done.
Yep.
Yep.
And that's testable. So how do you know when you're done? Because we've tested it and we've made sure that we're done.
Done.
And when we're writing stories, we're thinking about how can this be verified? So that's part of our acceptance criteria. How I'm going to check to make sure that this was done. And we want to be specific. We don't want to be nebulous.
No.
So I never say never.
Okay.
On a story. And never say, not too long. Like I want to click the button and have it not wait too long.
I want quick performance.
Yeah. Define your performance. This page comes back within 1.5 seconds.
Right.
Be specific.
I got a requirement the other day.
Yeah.
I want to receive an email when the period is coming soon.
Yeah. Okay.
I know.
What does that mean?
What can you define soon, please?
Is that what you said? I'm curious. Did you ask them what that meant, or did you say define it?
Can you please define soon?
Yeah.
What is soon? 5 days, 3 days, an hour? I don't know what soon is. We can't code for soon.
I always get in trouble with a lot of different people.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say in trouble, I mean, I'm being a little sarcastic, but both work-wise and family-wise and friend-wise, when somebody says something like that nebulous thing, and I can't process that. So I'm asking the questions. What do you mean you'll be there in a little bit? Is a little bit 5 minutes? Is a little bit 2 hours? I'm not aware of your context, so please help me. Right?
Oh my God, no, I totally get it. 'Cause
Yeah.
I'm the exact same way.
Yeah.
Eric's my husband. He said to me the other day, I asked him if there were, I don't know, dog bowls or something.
Mm-hmm.
He said, they may have been packed away.
Yeah.
And I was like, did you pack them away? He said, they may have been packed. I didn't pack them away. Did the dogs pack them away? Did you pack them away? Where were they?
Yeah.
Are they packed or not?
Yeah.
And then he got annoyed with me. And I'm like, don't get annoyed with me.
Yeah.
You're too vague.
and I've told people,
specifics.
I need to be specific about this type of thing. And if you don't know, then please tell me you don't know. And I'm fine with I don't know. Let's work toward an answer. If you say you'll be there soon and I say great, or the story will be done soon and I want to accept it, great. Is that 5 minutes? Can I go get some coffee? Do I need to come back tomorrow?
Is that like a PO thing, or do you think that's?
I don't know.
Because I wonder, because we do see things in black and white. Acceptance criteria are black and white. There's no gray area for me in acceptance
that's
criteria.
True.
So do you think it's just?
I don't know.
Is that how we're wired?
It's how I'm wired.
That's how I'm wired.
I don't know
too.
if that's a condition of the role that I'm in or not. But, and I don't know if it helps or hurts me.
I think it depends who you talk to.
It really does. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Just
Okay.
went off on a tangent there.
So yeah. So again, these stories, we're negotiating these stories because we want to lead these things to better conversations and better outcomes. That's the ultimate goal of all this negotiation and the stories and everything else we're doing, is to get everybody to talk about the same thing in the same context so that we get a better outcome. The stories really aren't finished. We really aren't done until everybody understands that shared meaning, and agrees to what they mean.
Yep.
And it's not that they have to say, yes, that's the absolute right thing to do, but they understand why we're doing it. And they say, okay, I see you're doing that. I process mentally what you're going for. So when I'm doing my thing, whatever it is, whether it's developing, testing, or using, I understand the decisions that were made, the conversations that were made to this decision that I'm now doing. So that's good stuff.
That is good stuff.
And there was an article, Mike Cohn wrote an article on, splitting, stories.
Okay.
And he talks about, there's a great article, but it's about, estimates on split stories do not need to equal the original.
Oh, yes.
So if you have a 13-point story, and it leads to our negotiation topic. So if you have a 13-point story, let's just say, that story, if you split it, does not need to be an 8-point story and a 5-point story. Those splits do not need to lead up to the total that you had for that other story, because these are now new stories. These are now independent pieces of value that can be delivered. We've negotiated them in. So that 13-point mega story, right, could now be a 3-point story, an 8-point story, a 5-point story, and a 1-point story.
Sure.
So you could have more than 13 points when you split it out, but that's a better outcome in my mind. I'd rather have that than one 13-point story.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Even though it's more total points.
I don't care.
I don't care. because it's different.
Yeah.
And it's valuable. Each of those pieces is valuable now.
I think you had to brainwash the team when they said it was 13. Just brainwash them. It's no longer 13. It's now 4 separate stories.
Well, it's not the same story.
It's not the same story.
Yeah. And that's the point. It's when you split those things, they're different. They're independent. Treat them that way and keep going. And Mike's got a great, we'll put it in the show notes, but he's got a chapter of his book, User Stories Applied, online for Invest. So it's a great read. It's about 4 or 5 pages, and it's on a PDF format. So it's free. You should really buy the book because it's a good book and a good read. But if you're just interested in the Invest pieces that he talks about, there's a great piece on that.
Very good.
Yay.
Yay.
So there's our main topic. If you have feedback or any questions about the product owner space, you can contact us at deliberatecast.com, on Twitter at deliberatecast, and email at deliberatecast@gmail.com. And I want to give a shout out to a listener, Robert, who gave us 3 topics for future shows.
Robert?
Yes, Robert. Yeah, Robert.
Okay.
Yeah, he sent us an email and gave us 3 topics. So I wrote them down, and you will look at them later.
I was thinking, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I have a different list than you do. Remember?
Yes. Why don't you tell us what those 3 topics are, Cory?
I don't remember them. One of them was about jobs. When you're interviewing for a job.
Interviewing for a PO job,
For
right?
a PO job. Mm-hmm. One of them was about
That's okay if you don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember. I wrote them down on our board, and we'll talk about them tomorrow.
That's great.
Thank you, Robert.
Yeah, we appreciate that. We also actually got a question from a Roger.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I was looking at you weirdly, because I'm thinking, are you talking about Roger? No, you're talking about Robert. Roger wants to know he asked about some tips and techniques for maintaining velocity during vacation times. So there are times, obviously, when the team has to go on vacation. Take some PTO, maybe there's extended sick leave, whatever the case is. And the velocity period will slowly decline because of that. So Roger wants to know if we have any suggestions, tips or techniques in dealing with vacation-induced slowdowns.
Well, people need to take vacation, so.
We have to allow that.
Yes, and we should allow that because we want people to feel.
We should encourage it, actually.
Interesting and relaxed and all that good stuff. I'll take this from 1 or 2 ideas. So you should have, in the past that I've done this, I've had enough people on the teams where one person taking a sprint off or an iteration off didn't really impact the team that much. You know, everybody kind of rallied around and they figured it out and they went ahead and charged through. If you're going to have like 3 people gone for an iteration, then you've got a planning problem.
I was saying, maybe you should take a vacation too.
Yeah. Or if it's something like if it's Christmas or Thanksgiving or some other holiday where everybody's out of the office. For situations like that, I usually don't count that velocity at all. In fact, I usually have a technical sprint during that time. And I don't count that velocity because we're just doing some technical data issues or some bug fixing or something that's not a project-wide thing. We're working on it, but it's not a planned sprint for the most part. But if I have one person out, it shouldn't affect the velocity. If it does, usually when I calculate my velocities, those things are baked in. So I'm planning on there being some variance there. So again, when we talked about it on the velocity show, or the talk about velocities on our show, when we said that, my suggestion is to have a range for your velocities. So if you've got a team and they're doing between 20 and 24 points, then, if a developer leaving from the team, and let's say it's your lead, it's your most experienced guy, leaves for an iteration or so, the team plans 18 points because he's not there. And if he was there, they could have planned 22 points, right? But you've got that range. So you're not that far off, if on that example of 20 to 24, but you're doing 18. So when you do your calculations next sprint, depending on how you calculate them, you can either throw that in or it'll lower because again, people will take vacation throughout the year. It's not that big of a deal, I don't think, but there are some ways to either plan for it or to plan around it.
I agree with you. I don't think it's a huge deal unless you do have multiple developers out. And if you do, then again, I wouldn't even include the velocity for that sprint in my numbers.
Depends on how far down it is, I guess, is my, if it impacts the team too much, then yeah, I probably wouldn't count it. But I've rarely seen that happen.
It's a really good question.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
But like you said,
Roger.
though, back to the point of people do take vacations. And if you're tracking velocity throughout a year, it's actually good to keep track of that because you will have people going on vacation throughout the year, summertime, Christmas time, whatever. So maybe you don't throw it out.
Yeah. When I was tracking them in spreadsheets and I was doing the thing when we had 80 people, I didn't throw any of them out for vacations. The only ones I threw out were Christmas and Thanksgiving. That's the only time. Even when we had, one of the teams we were working with, their holiday was in January or their holiday was in April or August. I didn't throw those out because basically they averaged out over the course of the year.
Yeah.
So
it's a good question.
Not that big of a deal. We have another question, but I think we'll save that question for next time.
Save it.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
Nope.
Are you sure?
What'd the shoes say to the pants?
No. No.
I'll come up with a new one for next time.
Please don't.
Cory's going to getting a new co-host pretty soon.
I would appreciate it if you didn't.
I know.
All right.
That won't stop me.
Maybe this will. These words are our own and are not endorsed or representative of any company or organization. You can find me on Twitter at @IsCoryBryan, and I'm blogging a little bit now at don'tYellAtMe.wordpress.com.
And as always, I can be reached through the show contact info.
And we just delivered episode 13.
Lucky number 13.
Lucky number 13. Thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
What's up, britches?
No.